It's possible. I mean, Donald Trump said he was rewriting his convention speech for this Thursday. We'll see if he does that. It's certainly not been his political instinct since he emerged on the stage in 2015 to run for the Republican presidential nomination back then. But we'll have to see how he changes. It's just not been his bread and butter. I mean, he's been the kind of candidate for public office who has engaged in loud, boisterous, Republican base first politics, and it's what's gotten him elected. It's been his secret sauce. He's been able to activate a bunch of conservative voters in the United States who other Republican politicians have not been able to embrace. Now, last night on stage at the Republican National Convention, we saw a bit of an outreach to less traditional Republican groups. They had the head of a big labor union here in the United States going after the American Chamber of Commerce on stage in front of a bunch of Republicans. I think if you had a moment where Donald Trump thought he could get sympathy from the American people and try to reset his image, this might be it, especially in the face of a pretty unpopular incumbent Democratic president who right now he's polling just a little bit better than.
Yeah, and I was wondering as well if the J.D. Vance pick certainly means that voters along the fringes now ultimately come into scope, especially for Republicans that have really swayed perhaps a lot more to the right than they have in the past.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, J.D. Vance is a move away from the traditional conservative politics of Mike Pence. I mean, when Donald Trump picked Mike Pence in 2016 to be his running mate, he was sending an olive branch to the traditional American Christian conservatives. J.D. Vance represents a different kind of Republican politics. It's more Trumpy, but it's not totally Trumpy. It's the kind of Republican politics that it focuses on at least talking to the working class voters. I mean, in our survey since 2016, Donald Trump has done at least one good thing for the Republican Party, and that has made working class voters think the Republican Party cares a little bit more about them. J.D. Vance is certainly in that vein. Now, I don't want to overstate J.D. Vance. Whenever you bring somebody like that into Donald Trump's orbit, Donald Trump is going to make them more popular. They're not going to make Donald Trump more popular. Only about half of voters have formed opinions about J.D. Vance so far, and they're pretty weak. And so, he's untested on this kind of national stage. I know he's a best-selling author. He's been in the United States Senate for a couple of years, but his political abilities are yet to be seen, and I think we'll learn more during the convention this week.
Yeah, I want to talk about that debate stage in a moment, but what does this mean for the older Republican establishment then? I mean, does this, in a way, drain the swamp of the old-style Republican swamp that we've gotten to know over the last couple of years?
I think the swamp is still there, to use your word. There's a lot of Republican money that comes from those same circles that's going to show up. And, I think given Donald Trump's competitiveness, and if we see some sort of a public-facing reset from the former president this week, any that was reluctant is probably about to come into line. I mean, think about the most establishment Republican figure who comes to mind, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky. And he was one of the people who was introducing Donald Trump as he was heading toward the Republican nomination yesterday. That comes after, Mitch McConnell was one of Trump's biggest critics after the January 6th Capitol attack back in 2021. And so, these are always kind of moments where the party begins to coalesce. And I think all of those parts of the Republican Party may start working together as they look to try to beat Joe Biden in November.